Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my NieR Automata hard video walkthrough. This is chapter 1, it is called the Prologue, and this walkthrough is going to be slightly interesting. It's technically going to be a very hard walkthrough, but I am going to be swapping to hard for certain sections. So this begins on hard, because this was originally meant to be that difficulty. But when I got to the amusement area, I decided to bump it up to very hard to see what the difference was. And then I played the rest of the game on very hard. And that's kind of what you're going to be seeing in this campaign, because this is 2B's campaign. After that there will be 9S's and then there will be A2's. I don't know what I'll be doing for those two campaigns because they are arguably, in my opinion, the weaker part of the game. And some of the encounters that you take on have got some problems, and I don't know if I can do them in very hard. There are 3 fights that stick out, and those 3 fights were completely miserable on hard, so I can't even imagine how much worse they will be on very hard. Which is kind of funny because intrinsically the difficulties are the same, and that's what I'm going to discuss in this opening video. One thing that needs to be made clear immediately here, guys, is that on NieR Automata there is no autosave, and this level has no saving. So you are about to watch a 20-minute video where if you die, you will go to the beginning of this video. Every single time. Doesn't matter how far you were, you will have to do the entire demo level and this tutorial, which is new, every single time. It has unskippable cutscenes, it has mandatory dialogue moments, it has 7 transitions where you're still in control, where you can die. It's kind of bullshit, but this game is kind of bullshit as well. And I'm going to be discussing that at length in this walkthrough as I share my feelings, my strategies, and hopefully give you a pretty decent path through the game to get those trophies if that's your thing, to beat those bosses if that's your thing, and to see success in NieR. So difficulty. How can very hard and hard be so comparable? Sounds strange, doesn't it? Well, it's not. On hard mode, 90% of the game will kill you in 1 hit. On very hard, 100% of the game will kill you in 1 hit. So the difference is essentially very ambiguous. And on very hard, you don't die in 1 touch from everything. There are a couple of exceptions. If you fall off the world, you'll take a little bit of damage. It won't count as a hit, so you'll not take full damage. If you fail a hack, you will not take full damage. You'll take a little bit of damage. So there are some commissions given to us as a player to make it a little bit more manageable. But other than that, guys, the difference is there really isn't one. I saw no difference in attack speeds, I saw no difference in attack damage, in attack anything. There's a couple of fights where I kind of got the impression that maybe they were a bit more aggressive or a bit more crazy, but I don't think they were. So the game is pretty much the same. And what's the point in playing on hard if you can play on very hard and get the same experience? That's kind of my logic, and that's what I did with the rest of the walkthrough. But we're currently in one of the shmup sections of NieR, because if you don't know, NieR is a game that loves to put all kinds of different gameplay conventions on display, and it swaps between them at quite a rapid pace. So we've just gone from shooting in the skies there, going side-on, going like Geometry Wars style with isometric, and now we're fighting in the area that we fought in the demo. On hard difficulty, in this sequence, you can take anywhere between 1 to 4 hits before you die, and I would guarantee that a lot of players who will be playing this sequence, once they realise how awful the checkpoint is, or lack thereof, will probably be going towards using items, and I wouldn't blame you at all. The game has an auto-use item chip, which you can pop on, which will make your character use them autonomously when you get low on life, and you're going to see it happen, I believe, in this video. Because at the beginning of the game here, you start with these presets, you don't have too much that you can really do. And I think that this is probably one of the hardest gauntlets in the game. And it has nothing to do with how difficult it actually is. It's kind of ironic, right? You have to do that shmup section at the beginning, all this platforming in action, then you have to fight a crane boss, then you have to do more platforming in action, then you have to fight 2 crane bosses, then you have to fight a Goliath, then you have to do a shmup Goliath fight, and then if you do all of that, you get to save, and you don't have to keep going back to the beginning. That is a pretty long sequence. That's about 40 minutes of gameplay. When you're not skipping cutscenes, if you don't know what you're doing, it might take you slightly longer. Watch this, by the way. Yeah. Hitboxes on this game are not honest. That deserved to hit me because I dodged it poorly, but as you saw, the moment I took damage just then, the saw wasn't touching me. everything has increased range than it visually appears, and this is something that is going to bite you in the ass repeatedly on very hard because you die in one touch. You need to get used to this, folks, and you're going to realise that dodging precisely is not as good as mashing dodge. And I never thought you'd hear me say that in a video, but it's true. If you precise dodge in this game, you're going to learn how to die before you learn how to dodge. You'll get there eventually, and you'll understand the timings, but you'll also understand that you will be dodging early, and you will be dodging when there is nothing attacking you. And that, to me, is a fundamental failure of this game, and something that I'm going to talk vastly about. Just like that. That kinda, you could say, maybe it touched me, but it didn't visually touch me, and this is something that happens a lot in video games, but never have I had it feel so bullshit like it does in this game. That was perfect. That, to me, should have been a dodge, worked fine. Nothing wrong with that one. But I'm going to be beating a dead fucking horse with this topic, so I don't want to go too heavy on it just now. The strategy here is to dodge the blade, counter-attack it, and shoot it while you're doing it. Get used to the controls, get used to the idea of shooting and attacking at the same time, because it's very powerful, and just understanding the general movement and feel of NieR, because it is very reminiscent of other games you've played, but it also has its own feel and its own weight, and it's something that needs to be learned. So, I was talking about the auto item use. Auto item use is going to be something that saves your life. I recommend using items as much as you want because it's going to make the experience a much more enjoyable one. If you're starting the game on hard or very hard, items don't help. They help in certain circumstances when you get very lucky, but for the most, nothing can save you from that encounter, from that difficulty, from those one-hit kills. And it's going to showcase another aspect of the game, which is not very good, and that is its capacity to make the game accessible for players. This might sound like a crazy thing to speak about for some, but to me it's incredibly important. Normally when you say accessibility, people think ease of use, people think control schemes that anybody can manage, people think gameplay that anybody can fathom. And that is true in a lot of ways, and I think NieR does a great job of this. NieR has a combat system that is just deep enough so that veteran players can experiment with weapon swapping, juggles and all kinds of interesting looking combos, whereas new players can feel completely empowered and achieve similar results by simply just discovering the controls and having fun. So in that regard, I think NieR is really accessible, but in how it distributes its gameplay to the player, it couldn't be more archaic, and it's archaic in the worst possible way for me, and that is of course with how it uses checkpoints and saving. NieR tells you at the very beginning of the game that the game doesn't use autosaves. Can you imagine a game in 2017 not using autosaves? Because I know I can't. Well, here you have one. And it almost takes this bizarre pride in the fact that it doesn't use this standard gameplay convention that has made games more accessible for years. This is an iterative process of improvement that this game chooses to ignore. So instead, it makes you mandatorily save like a classic RPG, which is almost like a throwback to those old tropes, and those are the only times the game really saves. So when you die, if you don't save, you go back a long way. If the game makes you do a large sequence of gameplay with no save points, and you die, you go back a long way. And it turns a lot of standardized design into something that is frustrating for no other reason than because of how it was designed. And then there are no checkpoints at all, except for in incredibly rare moments where you almost feel like the people who made the game know what they're doing. And then there are other instances where you think those checkpoints will be, and they're not. And then you question what the hell were they doing. And it's this complete lack of consistency that leads to an incredibly inaccessible game at times. And it's a massive shame too for me, because this is a really fun game in a lot of ways. There's a lot of great qualities, and I look forward to describing them and discussing them and going into much more detail. But a lot of players are never going to see them because of just how draconian the setup of these systems is. And it doesn't make sense. And the reason I'm getting this out early, guys, is because I need to tell you what you're in for if you're going to play hard or if you're going to play very hard. You're going to see how this game runs under duress. Because the higher difficulties on video games do one thing better than they do anything else. They highlight just how well put together your video game is, and if you have any cracks or any flaws, it isolates them tenfold. And that is exactly what these difficulties are going to do to this game. If you look on the internet right now, you're going to see a lot of people calling this game a masterpiece, a lot of people saying that this is the best RPG ever, a near perfect score from Famitsu magazine that completely and totally wasn't paid for. And I'm here to tell you that as much as this game has great qualities, it also has a host of maladies that plague it. And if you don't understand them going into it, you might have a very similar experience that I had on my first playthrough of this game, which was to say, it was probably the most irritating, frustrating, annoying video game I've ever played. And it comes from my favourite development studio, which is Platinum. And it doesn't feel like a Platinum game at times. It feels like people who do not know how to make games. And once again, these are not statements I can take any pleasure in saying, but they need to be said. Because right now, the sycophancy and the overzealous nature of people who are too into the game to see the flaws are polluting the discourse, and I don't think that that should be true. There's no way I can know if you won't love this game. And I'm not telling anybody that you won't. But what I am saying is this game has fucking problems. It's a mess. And if you play on the harder difficulties, you're going to meet every single one of them head on, and it's going to take its toll. So hopefully by the end of this walkthrough, I can have got you through some of those issues, like an issue just then. Did you see what happened? Notice how the option that I have, the pod, favours whatever side it wants to favour when I'm shooting these people. I have no control over this. This is not Death Smiles. So when I was shooting that guy just then, it favoured a side that made it clip into the wall and stopped my bullets. So I couldn't block the bullets with my gun, and I took an unnecessary hit from a single bullet that took nearly half of my life. Welcome to NieR Automata, where shit like that happens a lot. But that is my harsh introduction. You've picked very hard, you've picked hard, you're looking for a challenge, you're a bit frustrated, and you're wondering, what can you do to make it easier? What can you do to approach it? And what am I going to show you in these videos? Firstly, my mic is in a different position, guys, because my mic arm is fucked, so I'm sounding quite distant away from it, and I apologise. I'm only going to commentate one video as much as I want to do all of them, because I don't think it sounds good enough. But I need to get this video out there to show people that, you know, stuff is happening, because I've not been able to stream, so I apologise about that to the people who are interested in the channel. But NieR. So NieR is more RPG than it is action game. And what I mean by this is, in a character-driven action game, I could do this entire thing at the base level because there would be systems in play that enable me to do the damage I need to do to the enemies without it taking 50 minutes to kill them. That is paramount design for me. That is what I wanted this game to be. This game is not that. This game is more RPG. So there are arbitrary level sliders and arbitrary damage scales, which means if you take on any enemy that is higher than you, it will almost certainly kill you in one hit if it connects, and you will have to hit it 50 million times to kill it. That's just how the game works. It leads to some rather cowardly play using the pod, and some rather cheesy play by exploiting AI weaknesses and things that you can use to your advantage. All of this is in the game, so don't feel any mercy for doing it, and don't feel bad for doing it because the game doesn't give a fuck. It will hit you through geometry. It will hit you with attacks that didn't hit you. It will hit you with attacks that didn't happen until after you were dead. The game doesn't care, guys, and it is incredibly punishing on the harder difficulties. So here is the double crane fight. I'm not a big fan of this fight, just because normally it goes really poorly. This one went really well. I didn't get a lot of opportunities to attack it, as I would have liked, but I managed to stay alive without taking damage, and that's all you need to do. Because if you're on very hard or hard, it doesn't matter, this fight will be the same. The only difference is, the ambiguity of your hit will always be death. Whereas on this, I will survive. And that's the reason that I did it, because I didn't want to do the intro on very hard, because it'd take me a fucking nightmare. It'd took forever. Because I make mistakes, guys, I'm just human. But the RPG factors of NieR have to be respected. If you want to see somebody who doesn't respect the RPG aspects of the game, watch my blind playthrough that I made, that's on my channel right now. You will see a player losing his sanity as everything takes 40 minutes to kill and he dies from one touch on everything. It's kind of brutal, but it's a good example of what happens if you don't take that advice. It can be done because there is still a measure of precision in the combat in this game that allows skill to supersede level, but it isn't enjoyable, it's fucking tedious. Here's the Goliath boss, very similar to the one on the demo. The only difference now, I would say, is I think he's a little trickier. Somebody told me there was an interview where the Goliath boss was more difficult in the main game than the demo. I don't really notice because it's kind of the same thing, and I just kind of get on with it. Shoot its face with your laser, attack it after you dodge it, And I'm going to put some money down right now, guys. I believe that this fight right here was made by Platinum. This is a Platinum fight, this, and you'll realise later on why I say this. Notice the hits, right? Every one of these hits, regardless of my spacings, lands on me, or lands close enough to me that if I dodge it with correct timing, I get the awesome counter-attack. There is a Goliath fight later on in the game where none of these systems work the same as they did here. On this fight, I can dodge every move consistently, effortlessly with one dodge. On the other fight, they hit me all the time, regardless if I press it once or if I mash it. This one looks and feels like Platinum, the other one looks and feels like dog shit. So, I want to just put that right now, before we get to it, to see if anybody else feels the distinction too. Because it could be just, you know, my brain being retarded. We'll find out.
This is the target. I'm going to
So, keep on shooting him. It takes a while. You'll be fine. Don't let the bullets touch you. You can shoot the bullets that aren't the super deep, purpley, pinky ones. Those ones have to be cut. If you slice them with your sword, you can get rid of them, but it takes good timing. And because the game doesn't have a traditional lock-on when you play on harder difficulties, you cannot control where she swings. So if she decides to lock onto a certain body part or lock onto a different direction, you will actually put your body into the bullet and kill yourself without attacking it correctly. Which is another fantastic design choice that blows balls. So yeah, plenty of more of those to discuss. But the RPG aspect. If you're willing to farm and grind levels, you will see a lot of success in NieR. Because when you are a higher level, you kill things faster, you generally take less damage from them, and it makes the entire experience way more streamlined. So you're going to have a ton of fun if you're the type of RPG player who loves to farm some levels, loves to, you know, farm drops, do all the equipments, do all the quests, all that kind of good stuff. You'll have a lot of success. I hate farming, I hate grinding, I hate overleveling, so I generally have a miserable time. But I am going to show you some techniques in this walkthrough that are hopefully going to give you the fastest results possible to get damage, to get levels, and to get through the game. You may be wondering what those are. Well, the first one is of course the chips. This game features an equipment system known as chips, whereas when you equip them you get certain passive bonuses. These chips offer a host of different attributes, and you can generally play how you want and see a lot of success. I'm going to be favouring damage, I'm going to be favouring shockwave, and I'm going to be favouring either experience gain, so that I can get more levels and have a little bit more of a fighting chance, and drops, so that I can potentially upgrade my weapons quicker. You don't need to do the chips, guys. I beat almost all of hard without using any chips because of the way the system works. And to elaborate on that for people who are not 100% on it, as I do a rather cowardly fight here because I just want to get this over and done with. So all I'm doing, guys, is I'm doing the dodge triangle attack where she throws the large sword. And all I'm going to do is cancel the recovery on it and throw it again, and I'm going to keep all these people away from me and in a nice little group of stunlock fun. Because it keeps knocking them back, there's nothing they can do, and I'm never at any risk. If you press too many buttons, you will close the distance, and that's when the risk begins. So the key to our damage is going to be chips. We're going to get some level 6 chips off of a meal towards the end of the game, and they're going to carry us through the last phase of the game, so levels won't really matter at that point, and that's going to be great. Up until that point, though, we're going to do a few things. One of them is side quests. I'm not going to show you the side quests that I'm doing. All I'm going to say is do them. They are all over the map. Some of them are easy, some of them don't even require combat. Others require combat, but it's easy because you can just be cheesy and get it done with. Do the ones you're familiar with, do the ones that you know you can do quickly, because each of them will give you money, they'll give you resources, and they will give you experience. And you can get a couple of easy levels just by doing things that are already on the way to your main objective. This being said, once again, folks, you don't have to do this. You just don't have to do any of them if you don't want to. You will level naturally, but you will generally be under-leveled for the bosses. It doesn't make the most difference, because for the most, you're going to be not the same level as a lot of the bosses, and you're going to have to hit them more than they have to hit you, because that's just this game in general. So it's not too much of a concern. It can be done. I've done it myself, and I'm sure you can do it too. But you need to be aware of the frustration that you're going to be letting yourself in for. There are fights in this game, guys, where you have to run all the way across the city to an area. Then inside the area you see a cutscene explaining what the area is that you can skip, and then you're going to run through that area. You're going to come across a boss who's going to have a cutscene that you can skip. You're then going to fight the first phase of that boss, which can take about, anywhere between a minute to 5 minutes, depending on your build and if you're strong enough and if you know what you're doing. And then you're going to see a cutscene that you can't skip, and then you can skip a part of it, and then you're going to go back into the action, and you're going to fight him again, and then it's going to come to another point where it shows you a little bit more of a cutscene, and then his final phase will be revealed, and then you're going to fight him. And at any point in that, if you take one piece of damage, you will go all the way back to the city. Because this game just is made by lunatics. If that's something that you can't put up with, these difficulties might not be for you. If you want to play on normal, you'll have the more fun. You won't see any of the problems I'm going to explain, because on normal, you can mash one button and win this game and enjoy the story. And that's what a lot of people are going to do, and they're never even going to know any of these issues exist. But if you're curious as to what these problems are and how to avoid them or deal with them, stick with this walkthrough, and I will hopefully get you through this game.